I want to spend a few minutes talk about the nace of Rabbeinu Zchus Yigenu, the nace of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov in these days of Ikvus of the Mashiach. It's a nace. This kind of a gathering is a nace that a few years ago couldn't have been imagined. In the beginning, when I started to learn this form of Rabbi Nachman of Nosson, it was an unbelievable feeling of loneliness that over the years has changed. It's the nace of Rabbi Nachman in these days before Mashiach. It's the nace of Chanukah, Mamash. And it's the nace that Reb Chaim which Hashem will be zoiche to see completed with the completion of the masterpiece, the translation of Likutei Moharan. It's all one sugya. The Sforno in Parshas Kisisa says a remarkable thing. The Sforno explains that from the beginning of time, from Bereshis, before the Chet HaEgel, before the sin of the calf, there was no need for one particular place of Avodas Hashem. There wasn't a need for a Har HaBayis, for Yerushalayim, for Beis HaMikdash. B'chol hamokim asher azkir shmi, avoy elechu v'rachtichu. And Hashem Yisbarach said that wherever my name is mentioned, it doesn't have to be in Yerushalayim. B'chol hamokim asher azkir shmi, wherever you mention my name, I'm there. Avoy elechu, I will come to you. And it wasn't necessary that there be one particular shevet, one particular tribe, one particular group of Jews, Kahanim, Leviim. Vatem tiyu li mamleches Kahanim v'goy kodesh. The entire Jewish people, be'etzem, are essentially Kahanim, a mamleches Kahanim, a goy kodesh. So the Sforno says that as a result of the Chet HaEgel, as a result of that failure of the Egel, which we're not going to talk about now, but as a result of that Chet, Hashem Yisbarach began a new Hanhage, a new way within Klal Yisrael, a new way, a Hanhage that would require a Beis HaMikdash, that would require a particular group of Jews, Kahanim Leviim, who would represent us in the Beis HaMikdash. And this went on. And then something amazing happened in history. What happened was the Yontiv of Chanukah. And everybody here knows the Ramban in Bahaloischa, who tells us that the Yontiv of Chanukah revealed in the neiros of Chanukah, in the candles of Chanukah, a hamshacha, somehow a continuation of the light of the menorah of the Beis HaMikdash, so that even after the Beis HaMikdash would be destroyed, and we would no longer have the place, and we would no longer have those people in the place. The Ramban tells us that the Yontiv of Chanukah means that every single little Jew, till the end of time, till that day of Arichas Nelev and Yishayim Mashiachenu, that every single little Jew, wherever he'll be in the world and she'll be in the world, will stand in that window, in front of the window, or in that Pesach, in that opening of the house, and will be able to put the shamas to the candle and say, Lahadlik Ner Chanukah. And in doing so, will take from the fire of the menorah of the Beis HaMikdash and bring that fire of the Beis HaMikdash into his home, into her home. There's no greater nace than this. Each and every one of us knows the house that we're living in. We try as much as we can to make it to a good Jewish home, but it's certainly not Beis HaMikdash. And some of you are Kahanim. I'm not a Kohen. Most of us are not Kahanim. Not a Kohen Gadol, not a Kohen Hedyot. And not only that, the Beis HaMikdash is in ruins. And you and I know that many of our lives have also been touched and affected by the ruins of the Beis HaMikdash. There are many Jewish homes that are ruined. And with all of that, the Ramban is teaching us a yesod, an unbelievable yesod, that the miracle of Chanukah means that a Jew is able to be anywhere in the world once again, the way that it was before there was a Beis HaMikdash. That wherever you are, you're far, far away from Yerushalayim, you're far away from the Beis HaMikdash, or from the Mokem HaMikdash. But b'chol hamokem asher asker shmi. But if you're a Jew and you remember, and you know that there's a Chanukah, b'chol hamokem, in that place, Hashem Yisbarach says, I'm bringing the Beis HaMikdash to you. I'm going to come to you in that place. You're not a Kohen, you're not a Levi. You're trying b'koishi to be something of Yisrael. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to you for who you are, in your place. Despite the churban of your life, despite that you and I know that how many times we've tried to be good, and how many times in our lives we've tried to build the Beis HaMikdash, and we often see, and it doesn't have to wait till Tisha B'Av, that the Beis HaMikdash that we're trying to build, a little bit davening, a little bit learning, a little bit Shmir Sinai, a little bit Kedushas HaBris, a little bit Tikkun HaMidas, it's chorv, a churban. V'im kol zeh comes to Chanukah, and we become Kahanim in the Beis HaMikdash. And the house, whether it's in the Eretz Yisrael or it's far, far away in Chutz La'aretz, in some little corner somewhere in the world, could be in a bunker someplace in the Warsaw ghetto, or there were some Jews who were able somehow to scratch together something to light a candle in concentration camp. And that disgusting lowest place on earth for that moment was illuminated with the light of Beis HaMikdash. And that Jew who was tormented by his enemies had been transformed into a Kohen standing in the Beis HaMikdash in that Gehenna. There's no greater miracle than that. What does that mean? And how does it help us on our level to understand the nace of Breslov in our days? The nace of Rebbe Nachman, Schus Yagen Aleinu, and the nace of this great undertaking translating Likutei Moharan. Likutei Halachos is a big sefer. But even if you just started and you got Tashkomas HaBoiker Halacha Daled, you didn't have to go far into the sefer to get there. There's a Hemshich that Rebbe Nosson has K'darkei. And Rebbe Nosson is talking about Chanukah, and he's talking about B'Shama B'Zillah, and he's talking about Yosef and his brothers. And there Rebbe Nosson discusses the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, of visiting the sick. And Rebbe Nosson writes that when a person is sitting in the comfort of his home, and he's well, and everything is going well, and this person decides that I'm going to leave the comfort of my home and the pleasant surrounding of being amongst healthy people, and I'm going to go to the hospital or to the home of a person who's not well, lo aleinu. When the person makes that decision not to stay home, but I'm going to leave my place because there's a chayla, there's a sick person somewhere in the world. It could be in Sloan Kettering, it could be here, it could be there, wherever it is. There's no shortage of places. Because there's a person who's lying in bed in that hospital, in that place, who feels terribly alone, who's terribly frightened, and there's nothing that would help him as much as the ha'oras panim, as the lechtig upon him, a shining face of a friend, of a person who cares. So the person leaves his home and goes to the chayla, to the sick person, and he helps take care of some things in the room, to bring something to eat, to make the person comfortable with a blanket, whatever it is. To tell a couple of jokes, to be machazek, to be medabra al libay, to talk heartsig with another Jew who's not feeling well. And by doing that, the one who's mevaka the chayla is mamshich chiyas. He draws life into the life of a person who feels that his life is perhaps coming to an end, God forbid, whose life is in a state of churban. And the way that he feels, and the way that she looks, and the way it is churban. And this mitzvah of Bikur Cholim Rav Nosson uses to explain the Yom Tov of Chanukah. The Jewish people are not well. And our Chachamim were able to see what Chanukah was going to mean for the generations of Galus, when there would no longer be a Beis HaMikdash, and there wouldn't be any more Kahanim and Leviim in the Beis HaMikdash, in Yisrael, b'Mamadim, when everything would be in a state of churban. Ve'ein anu yicholim la'alois, le'rois u'lishtachavos. Like a person who's not well, who can't get up and go to shul, who doesn't have the koiches to get up and daven, that the entire Knesset Yisrael would be sick. Ve'ein anu yicholim la'alois, le'rois u'lishtachavos. The time would come when we would not be able to gather our strength as we did when we were well. And our Aveir is brought to Chorm and to Golos, and it would be far, far away from Yerushalayim. And Rav Moshe says an amazing thing, when a person is well, and he wants to go to see the king, can imagine, we don't know what it means, a musig of a king, but a person when he's well, when he's healthy, and he wants to go see the king, how many hachonas does he have to make? He has to go through all the hachonas of Esther Malka before she came into Achashverosh. If you want to go into the king, to be matar yourself, to purify, to prepare yourself to go into the king, when you're well, and you have to wait online, and you have to be worthy to go into the king. But if a person is, God forbid, sick, and it happens that that sick person is me'anshe hamelech, is one of the king's close chevra, is me'anshe hamelech, as kam v'kam, if it's the child of the king. And that person is not well, then there's a hisurus of the Rachmei HaMelech, there's a murdik hisurus of the Rachmei HaMelech, of the love and of the compassion of the king. That despite the fact that it's so uncharacteristic for the king to leave his place, Kol hamokim asher azker shmi, he will leave his place, hamokim asher yivcha Hashem. And wherever that person is, Kol hamokim asher azker shmi, the king leaves his place, his palace, to go to be meir upon him, to bring life to the chayla, to the one he loves. This is the side, by the way, of the fact that the Shechina is l'malam reishayis shel chayla, that the Shechina is by the bed of the chayla. It's a big chayla that the Shechina Kadosh goes to a Jew who's not well. And the Yontiv of Chanukah, Rebbe Nosson teaches, the Yontiv of Chanukah, where you and I stand in our homes, wherever they are, is the Yontiv of knowing that in our state of sickness, and golus, it means so far away from Kedusha, lying in our filth, that the Shechina HaKadosh comes and descends all the way down L'matim Aseret Tvachim to be with us in our lives. That's the Nes of Chanukah. And the Nes of Rabbi Nachman of Nachal Nevei Makar Chachma. Nachal, you know, is the Oisius Lahadlik Ner Chanukah. And Nachal, the flowing river of Rabbi Nachman's wisdom, the flowing river of the Tzaddik's presence in our lives. Lahadlik Ner Chanukah is Nachal. It says in Svarim, Nachal is Nafshenu Chitzel Hashem, and Esas can other Svarim say. The Nachal is Nafshenu Chitzel Hashem. That our souls are waiting for a visit from Hashem, Nafshenu Chitzel Hashem. Rabbi Nachman was entirely Chanukahdik. The whole essence of Rabbi Nachman, is Chanukah. That yontiv of Achvis Hayom, that yontiv of the end of time, that yontiv for the Jews at the end of his line, that yontiv that Hashem Yisborach gave us to sustain us through the long years of darkness, where we'd be sick and we wouldn't be able to get up and go to Him. The tzaddik comes to us and brings the Shechina HaKadosh into our lives. And I've often been asked over the years, And I'm not a maven in any way in Rebbe Nachman, I'm not a maven in Breslov. I tell people from Yerushalayim, speak to Reb Chaim Kramer. But when someone asks, there are many, many tzaddikim. And all the tzaddikim are kedoshim and taharim, we have to tremble at the mention of their names. In what way is Rebbe Nachman different? But there are certain tzaddikim, Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, Rebbe Nachman, there are certain tzaddikim who are just different. As I said, the fact that there's a gathering of this nature is itself a proof that there's something different. Not too many of you here look like Hasidic Yidden. I look more like one, I'm not. If you don't shave, at some point you start to look like one. There's something different about Rebbe Nachman. When a person's not well, he's in that world that we laid yesterday in the parasha. Vayivoseh Yaakov levadai. Vayivoseh Yaakov levadai. When a person is not well, the most horrible feeling is the feeling of levadai. I'm by myself. I'm alone. I've been abandoned. The tzaddik, b'chlal the tzaddikim, ubefrat, the chaim, the sheinkeit, the yoifi, the beauty of the world, that you have a tzaddik that's gavoya me'al gavoya, that on his own is the most exalted of exalted, and that tzaddik decided at some point early in his life to descend from that mountain of exaltedness. That tzaddik is in the image of Yosef HaTzaddik. Yosef HaTzaddik, it says in this parasha, Yosef ben Shvaz ve'Shona, hayeroyes echav batzayin. The Yosef HaTzaddik was 17. And he went to watch over the sheep, and it means Royes Echabatzayin. He was watching over his brothers, the Jewish people who are Hashem's flock. And Rabbi Nosson says there in that Torah, and look at the halachas, that Yosef, the tzaddik, is ben Shvaz Reishon, and 17 is the Gematria Tov. And there's a certain tzaddik that is compelled by the Tov within him not to remain on his mountain, not to remain apart from the Jewish people. There's a tzaddik who is driven to spend every moment of his life uncovering the Tov, pointing out the Tov, finding the Tov in each and every Jew, even the one who is the sickest, who's the lowest, who seems to be the furthest away from Harabayis, from Yerushalayim, from Kedusha. And that's why it says in the Torah, V'hunar is b'nei Bilha, v'es b'nei Zilpa. And it also says that b'nei Bilha and b'nei Zilpa are those Jews who are on the lowest madrega, the children of the Shvachis. Bilha and Zilpa is a lashon of Bahala and Zilafos, which means confusion, anger. Jews who are confused, Jews who are angry, Jews who are lost, Jews who aren't well. The B'nai Bilha, the B'nai Zilpa. And it says about Yosef HaTzaddik, V'hunar is B'nai Bilha, is B'nai Zilpa. V'hunar. And Chazal tell us that Yosef HaTzaddik would do Maaseh Naris. He acted like a nar. He acted in certain ways that were not becoming. And he did that intentionally. Because those B'nai Hashvachas, those B'nai Bilam, B'nai Zilpah, who feel so lost, who don't have the strength to get up and to go to the tzaddik, to go to Yerushalayim, the tzaddik has to enclose himself in Sipurim Maisias and stories, in Mishalim, in all kinds of Mishalim parables, and in different ways. The tzaddik has to go down. V'unar is b'nei Bilav, is b'nei Zilpah. As Rabbi Nachman says in the story of the turkey, of the prince who thought he was a turkey, that all of you, I'm sure, know, and that the tzaddik has to go under the table and to act like a turkey. And Rabbi Nachman knew that this would bring upon him scorn and anger and disapproval. Not only by the Misnagdim, there were even those tzaddikim who from the Talmidei Baal Shem who disagreed with Rabbi Nachman's path at that time. And even now, sometimes a Jew who follows this way of Rabbi Nachman feels a little bit Vayivasa Yaakov Levada, more alone and different. And that's why it says that Yosef's brothers, Lohikiru, they didn't recognize him. They didn't understand him. They didn't recognize him. And the Shvatim disagreed with him. And Yosef at Tzaddik wore the Ksainas Pasim. The Shefach Chaim from Kloisenberg's Chusi only brings down that he heard that Pasim, that colored robe, is the Gematria, Potifera, Soichrim, Yishmaelim, Mitzrayim, all the tzaras that he went through, all the difficulties that he went through, that he was thrown into a bar, and that his own brothers turned away from him, and all that Rabbi Nachman went through, and all those followers of Rabbi Nachman, especially in the beginning, when Rabbi Nosson was Soivel, for one reason, to be a Chanukah candle, to be the Or HaShechina, to be Mevakeh Chayla, to go down from that place all the way down, like the Shechina goes down to the Chanukah Menorah, Lamatim Aseret Tvachim, into the lives of Bnei Zilpah. For one reason, the name of Yosef means Yosef Hashem Li Ben Acher. I want another Jew, Ben Acher, Yosef Hashem Li Ben Acher, to be Moisef V'Hoylech. Another Jew. Another Jew. And with all the talk of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh and the Derech Baal Shem, where do we see such a Tosefes outside of the closed world of those Hasidic Hanklas? To be Moisef V'Hoylech, the Or of Rabbi Nachman, the Or, of course, also of Chabad, of the Alter Rebbe, Shchus Yaleinu, they're of course tzaddik. But this Avodah, this V'hunar is B'nai Bilav, is B'nai Zilpah, which more than anybody else is the Nes of Rabbi Nachman. This entire Torah. I'm sorry, I'll be finished in a minute. I apologize for the arichas. This teaching of Rabbi Nosson is going on the Torah in Likutei Moharan, Lamed, the Torah that I'm sure many of you have learned, Meishra the Sakina. Listen to the words in Ois and Siv Beis. It's the 30th Torah. Each and every one of us in our lives, we have to seek out a Rebbe, a Melamed Hogan Kazeh, a fitting good Rebbe. Who's so great, this Rebbe, that he's able to bring down the highest concepts of the Borei Olam, to bring down the Shechina, all the way down to a Jew in his place, on his Madrega. That's exactly what the translation of Likutei Moharan is all about. The Hainu Hasokis Elokus, Ki tzarech l'zeh Rebbe gadol ma'od ma'od. For this you need a great Rebbe. Sheyuchel lahasbeh seichel gadol kazay dei seichel atachton kanal, who can explain very deep concepts. Kedei sheyuchel aktanim lahavina, that even children can understand. Meaning even children, even people like ourselves can understand. V'kol ma'ashu kodem b'yoseh, and the smaller the person is, u'meruchak b'yoseh Hashem Yisbarach, and the further the person is from Hashem Yisbarach. The only difference between yourselves and many other Jews is that you admit and you acknowledge this. While many are still holding out with a delusion that they're not sick. Hutzarech Rebbe Gadol b'yoseh. The further away you are, the bigger the Rebbe you need. He brings like a Mitzrayim on the smallest Madrega, and on the 49th level of Tumah we needed the Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest Rebbe. You need a bigger Rebbe if you're further away. The same way Rebbe Nachman says, the sicker a person is, the greater the Roife, the greater the doctor. For a Chanukah you can go to a little doctor, but Chalila, for a big thing you have to go to the biggest doctor. So he ends this and he says this, and he says behind him, Sheyachzer Yavakesh Tomen Lizkois Lizkarev Ha'Rebbe Ha'Gadol Ma'od Ma'od. That a person should spend his entire life begging and crying out and davening and seeking throughout his life that great Rebbe, that great tzaddik, the Yosef HaTzaddik, V'hunar is b'nei Bilov is b'nei Zilpah. And this is why you and I, so many years after Rebbe Nachman, are able to be warmed by his fire, and we're drawn to his light. And even though we're in a state of Vayivosei Yaakov Levadai, and we don't know how we're going to continue, we feel sometimes so lonely and so far. Vayivosei Yaakov Levadai. How are we going to have the strength to continue this struggle? Vayavek Ishi Imai, the struggle with the Sarah Shel Esav, Ad Aloisa Shachar, until that time of Mashiach. So Rebbe Nachman came down to us, and he brought the Shechina v'nizgav Hashem lavadoi b'yeimahu. And all of Rebbe Nachman's Torah is Chanukah, and all of Rebbe Nachman's Torah in his whole Metzius was one thing: you're not alone. The tzaddik is here, and the tzaddik says, "I understand you," and the Shechina is with you, and you feel that your chayil, the Shechina, was never closer to you, was never ever closer to you than now. And Rebbe Nachman's teaching us that the truth is that just as you feel an emptiness without the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kivyochel, he feels that he himself is not well without us. And that as we seek him, he is seeking us. I want to end and tell you a story that I saw, a beautiful story that my dear friend Shlomo Katz brought down in the book that he put out on Gracious from Shlomo's and Teachings. There was a Chassidish Yid years ago, before the Milchama, who lived in a tiny little village. He was the only Jew in the village. And even though we don't know so many stories like this, but it really wasn't that uncommon. He had a daughter, and the daughter was lonely. And there weren't any eligible Jewish boys in that faraway village. And unfortunately, she became mixed up with somebody who wasn't Jewish. Not just a person who wasn't Jewish, but from the lowest type, a shikar, a drunk who was abusing her and mistreating her. But she felt, as many people do in the world that feel that way, that feel such a desperation and a loneliness, that they'll settle even for something like that. So this chassid came to his Rebbe. He went to his Rebbe, who lived pretty far away. His Rebbe was Reb Shimon Skernowitzer. Reb Shimon was, you heard, everybody here knows the Beis Medrash of Amshinov. So this tzaddik of Shimon Skernowitzer was from that world of Amshinov. Amshinov is known, the trademark of Amshinov is Ahavas Yisrael. Rabbi Yitzchak Vorka. So he went to Reb Shimon, and he poured his heart out. He told Reb Shimon about his daughter. And he told Reb Shimon that the latest thing is that his daughter is now in a convent, near their village in some convent, and in a few days she's going to be converting, and there's going to be a marriage between herself and that shikha that she's hanging around with. And Reb Shimon Skernowitzer, Reb Shimon asked, where is this convent? Tell me exactly where it is. And the Yid told Reb Shimon, and Reb Shimon went over there with his shamas to that place. Can you imagine? And he was standing outside that convent. It's a big wall, like a fortress, and he was standing outside. And they were able to pay somebody off, somebody that was going into work over there in the convent, to smuggle in a letter. And Rabbi Shimon wrote on the letter, I, Shimon of Skernowitz, I'm standing on the corner. I'm waiting for you. She knew that her father was a chassid, of course, of Reb Shimon. And that's all that he wrote on the letter. I, Shimon of Skernowitz, I'm standing on the corner waiting for you. So listen. Reb Shimon Skernowitz stood there by that place for 3.5 days. He davened there. He stayed there for 3.5 days. In the middle of the night, of that fourth night, whatever it was, this girl comes out. And she comes crying over to Rabbi Shimon to take her home to her parents. And Rabbi Shimon, as they're running away, Rabbi Shimon asks her, tell me the truth. Why did you come out? Why did you leave? Why did you leave everything? You're supposed to convert, you're supposed to get married. Why did you leave the convent? And their answer was very simple. Because I knew you would never leave without me. So I came out. Anyone here who has been zoichet to taste of the Nachman Levem Kachachma knows what that feels like. The tzaddik never ever leaves without any of us. From that girl stuck in a convent to people like ourselves who are stuck in our narishkeit and our smallness, in our little convents that are far from Kedusha. If we've been zoichet to receive a letter, I Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, I'm standing on the corner and I'm waiting for you. And each and every one of us will be zoichet with Hashem. Each and every one of us will be zoichet for that day, that we'll be able to get out. Because we know in our heart of hearts that He's not leaving without us. I want to take this opportunity. It would be silly for me to say a big yashikar to Reb Chaim. He's poured 30 years of his life. The best part of it is the writing, the teaching. The hardest part is, what is he doing in Cedarhurst when he should be home with his family? And it's been good for us. He's made a lot of friends along the way. But what a schus Reb Chaim you have looking back over the years, what a schus to help light the menorah of Rebbe Nachman in the world, and to help smuggle in that letter to each and every one of us, to know that the tzaddik is here, and the tzaddik won't leave us. So Bez Hashem, we should all be zeiche to go out, la'alois, le'roz, l'shtachavos, to return to that place together with all of the tzaddikim, to be zeiche for that day, v'arichas ner le'v'nishayim shichenu, l'gula Hashem v'amitis m'herim min amen.